Good morning and welcome to our Going Virtual series. My name's Libby Ray and I'm from AV 24/7 and we're here live from AV 24/7 Studio 24/7. Today we're going to be talking about employee connection and engagement. For years, we've all worked so hard to build a culture that is engaging and aligned to our values and business objectives. Culture is infectious, whether it's good or bad. And a great culture is led by your employees and leadership and helps the business and its employees to thrive, feel connected and inspired. So what happens when your business has been completely turned upside down? When you can no longer lean on the office environment and physical connection with your team to keep the culture alive? How can we share our feelings and thoughts and understand how our team are holding up behind a computer screen, with many emotionless emails, with so many different potential meetings? Employees are being challenged in so many ways, from homeschooling to new online meetings to simply just adjusting to being isolated from their usual world. However, our businesses are still extremely important and we need to find a happy medium to support our staff and their challenges, but also ensure the stability and longevity of our businesses. Gartner research shows that 75% of HR leaders reported the top employee complaint during the coronavirus outbreak as concerns from their managers about productivity or engagement of their teams when remote. So how do you manage output without making staff feel micromanaged and not trusted? How do you show tens or hundreds of staff that you're there for them when you can't physically be near them? How can you keep the band together, so to speak, keep the team culture alive? Some workers now realise that the presence of others in the structure of the office kept them focused, and others now know that the external structure slowed them down and that working from home actually increases their productivity. The number one tip is to communicate more often. Work out which bracket your employees sit in and change your approach to suit each individual. Some of the tips being used by organisations are twice daily team catch-ups, flexible working times to support working from home environment parents, software platforms managing output, including those that rank daily productivity, Friday afternoon social online catch-ups, buddy systems to keep people connected, individualised programs and work time options, and finding opportunities to inject some fun, increase learning, and encourage team involvement. So to deep dive into some of the potential opportunities available in this space, I would love to introduce you to the Director of Operations at Be Challenged. Kingsley Seal has over 10 years' experience in team development and has the tools required to allow teams to be engaged, inspired, and connected through global proven learning programs in a dynamic, fun, and engaging atmosphere. Welcome, Kingsley.
Thank you very much, Libby. Thanks so much for having me today.
No problem at all. So I'd love to share with everybody a bit about Be Challenged. How long has Be Challenged been around?
So Be Challenge has been around now for over 10 years. We started in a little shed out the back of Kennards. That's where things began. And now we've got the three main offices in New South Wales, Queensland and Vic, running anywhere up to 50, 60 programs a month.
Wow, that's pretty crazy. And I can imagine that, your business has changed significantly lately, flipped upside down. But why was it originally started? What was the basis of your company to begin with?
Yeah, flipped upside down is probably an understatement. But definitely from our end, when we started it, so myself and my business partner, Oliver, we've always been in teams together. And whether that be working in a pub, whether that be in a rugby team, all these different team atmospheres. And then we went into the working world. And what we couldn't work out was why people didn't have as much fun in the working world as they did in those other worlds. So I guess the real passion for us was to bring that team atmosphere that we loved, we engaged with, we thought it was really a fun environment, and try and bring that into the corporate world in some way, shape or form. Our basis being, if you're having fun, enjoying your time at work, we spend so much time at work anyway, it's just going to make life that little bit better. Yeah, definitely. I think there's probably three that I can think of. The first one being it's touchy-feely. That's the word I want to use. You know, a lot of our events, we bring things on site. You build giant cars out of flat-packed cardboard, or you're painting like the big picture behind me. You're doing all these different things that involve touchy-feely. And now we've almost taken that away. So our challenge is to create the connection without that touchy-feely part. The second one being our programs are always designed to be inclusive. So we have to be really mindful that people are isolating, and you know, where you might be isolating could be very different for me. So making sure that people weren't able to participate just purely because they didn't have a high-powered gaming computer or something along those lines. We need to make sure that was the other one. And the third one, which we've seen, is probably making them a little bit shorter. You know, people will be engaged in a physical world for, 2 to 3 hours. You can usually get people to stay engaged through Zoom or the various video platforms. 60 to 90 minutes is probably about your limit now. So just making them a bit more short, a bit punchier, and working your way through them that way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I completely agree with you. Thinking about the time spent on Zoom and the length of programs, whether that be, a meeting or a team building thing, you just get exhausted staring at a screen for too long. So having extra breaks or having a shorter meeting, totally think that that's a really good idea. What kind of clients are you working with for the virtual team building events?
We're lucky to be working across a broad spectrum. When coronavirus first hit, our big thing was to try and just support the events industry. So we actually put the message out there, and we've done a whole bunch of just free events with a lot of our partners because they're hurting, and we like to think this helps. So a lot of the events industry have been great supporters of ours. So it was great to get involved with them. And then on top of that, a lot around. So there's government, insurance, commercial property. Really anyone and everyone. And what people are realizing is rather trying to engage, 200, 300, 400 people at a time, just, getting your small team of 15 to 20 engaged in a short, sharp activity can make a big difference in their mindset, I guess, when they look at their remote working situation.
Yeah, totally. I completely understand in trying to get that connection. I'm wondering as well, just in relation to the amount of people you generally have in one of these programs. How many, what's like the gold number?
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting one. I'd say it's going to come down to the program. That definitely dictates what that magic number is. From 15 to 20 is a really nice atmosphere. When you get to 80 to 100, which we've done, it's still a very engaging piece. You almost have to set bigger ground rules. For anyone who's been on a big Zoom meeting with, 50, 60 people, and you just end up with people talking over each other, it's just really about managing and setting up the rules of engagement at the start. And then from then it can flow quite nicely. So some of our programs work really well with that 50, 60. But I think that 20 to 30 number works really nicely to get engagement, connection, and have some fun along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so, really there's an option out there for most businesses or most teams.
Definitely.
And can you tailor programs to specific businesses, or is it mostly just the set ones that you have?
No, great question. We've probably got a mix. There's a few that are pretty much, this is how it works, this is what it is. But then there are some others where we can bring in some really cool customizable features. So Go Remote, for example, there's options there to bring in a lot of client-based content. So one of the big ones we're talking about with clients is with this disconnect, sometimes people forget, why they actually do what they do. You're going through the motions rather than actually reconnecting with your office and your office space and your work and your vision, your passion, and all those things. So allowing businesses to build into this is an app-based activity, elements about their values. So what is it that we do? Why do we do it this way? How did we start? Reconnecting with colleagues, even something as simple as sharing baby photos of their various colleagues and being able to guess who is who, creates that reconnection. So, again, there's a mixture, but there's definitely programs that can be hugely customized depending on what they're after, timeframes, locations, whether you have to run it over 3 separate segments, because sometimes you have teams that have to work, 24 hours a day. So you do team 1 in the morning, team 2 in the afternoon, and team 3 in the evening. So lots of availability there for customizing. And it's really just up to what they're after.
Excellent. Well, how about we run through a couple of your top ones? I'm sure they're all amazing. But let's talk about Win It in a Minute. I think this is a fun one. Do you want to talk over what that one is?
Yeah, definitely. So Win in a Minute is definitely a remake of a face-to-face program that a lot of businesses have and have done, and it is purely designed around having some fun. That's the engagement piece around it. Is people being able to have fun in their homes with their colleagues in a 1 hour format. So basically how it works is, we start off, everyone gets a little briefing through the video conference, then they have to find their team. So to do their team, they get put in breakout rooms and they have to all come up with and find a common item that is in each household that they can all have and share on screen. So for example, everyone might find a hat. They all go put on a hat. Then when they come back to the big space, we now know which team is which. So that was a really good little icebreaker that works through. From there, basically we'll present a video which shows them the activity that they need to achieve with simple household items. So for example, one of them might be face the cookie, which is all around moving a cookie from your forehead to your mouth. Most of us have probably got too many cookies in our household at the moment. So we show the video, they then go with their team into their little breakout space for 2 or 3 minutes. They work out who in their team is going to be best to complete the activity. They come back into the main room and they try and compete with the other groups, and away they go. You do 4 or 5 of those, come together, everyone's having a laugh. The biggest thing that is allowed is everyone's switched off from everything. So when you're trying to move a cookie from your forehead to your mouth, you're not so worried about coronavirus, you're not worried about social restrictions, you're not worried about all those things going on in the world. And for 60 minutes, you're purely focused on having a laugh and engaging with your colleagues.
I think I would absolutely fail in the cookie to mouth thing. I've tried it before and I'm absolutely horrendous at it. I'll be very hungry at the end of that one, I think.
We ran one. I mean, we've been doing a lot of trials with just friends and family, and that's been really cool because a lot of us have our kids around. So when we ran this particular one, the lineup with all the kids that went through and just said, yeah, we've got this. And my 5-year-old was very good with the Oreo, managed to move it very quickly from her head to the mouth.
That's good. Kids are always so much better than at those things. So, I mean, I'm imagining this is probably good for most organisations, but particularly, is it, organisations where there's people that are sort of sensing that your team is a little bit sort of frustrated or sad or really struggling with their home environment?
Spot on. I see this as there's 2 ways. A lot of people talk about having their Friday afternoon Zoom drinks, which is awesome. It's so good to see businesses doing that. But a lot of time when you've got up to 20 people on that, you end up with people kind of talking over each other. So this is kind of a substitute to give that a bit of structure and allow that to achieve a similar outcome. But as you said, if you can feel that your team, some people are just getting pretty caught up in the onerous task, whether that be because they're a single person living alone, staying in their flat, or they're, a mum who's got 3 kids at home trying to homeschool, just providing them with this little breakout moment. And again, that they can share with whoever else is in the house, really, is a really positive experience for them.
Yeah, it sounds really fun, actually. I think it'd be a really good one to do. And what sort of, I guess we've kind of covered this a little bit, but are there any other outcomes that we can expect out of this?
The only other one would be, again, just recreating those connections. We can quite quickly forget about the connections we have with our colleagues. It's very easy when you're in office to stand up from your desk and walk over and have a conversation with someone. So just reminding people that, that connection piece is really important, and it's about not just the organisation, but the individuals to make that effort as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, let's move on to another one. Infinite loop. Talk to me about that one. What's that about?
Yeah, so the infinite loop actually came from our partners in Tunisia. One of the biggest values we've got, or not values, I should say, but one of the biggest advantages we have is we've got connections around the world where other team building organizations are building products, testing them, trialing them, and then we get access to them. So this one's actually a product we had back in the real world, if you like, that's now been adapted to be done online. And essentially what it is in your teams, you get presented with a video where John Doe has been locked in the virtual world, probably something that we can all relate to at the moment. And what you need to do in your team is you need to work out how to free John Doe. And it does that through almost like a little bit of a video game environment, but it's very, very simple. In your teams, you go into your own separate breakout space. One of you will have access to the game screen, and the others will have access to information that helps that person who's in the game screen. So by communicating and working together, they're able to progress in the game. And each time they make a bit of progress, the screens will change. So all of a sudden, while I might have had the game screen for round one, once we get through that section, it'll switch, and now another person has the game screen, and I now have the materials to help them with it. So it just progresses like that. It's highly competitive, a lot of fun. It is challenging to an extent. It's probably on the next level up from Win It in a Minute. Still fun, still enjoyable, still that connection piece. But it's great for also just starting to teach us how to work remotely, I guess, where you might not necessarily have access to the information that you need, but someone else in your team does. And so it's about communicating effectively with them to get the best result.
That's awesome. I'm wondering, do you actually also sort of talk through, like kind of loop that back in after the program, going, okay, you see how you did this is how it works in the real world, and, like the light bulb kind of goes off a little?
Yeah, great question. And that's what we call it, either a debrief or a wrap up. And it can be done in a couple of ways. Sometimes you just flow straight on, highlight 2 or 3 key things, use an example, and then let people go. The other way, linking back to what we said before about Zoom fatigue is, switch off there, give them 3 or 4 hours to get on with their day to day, and revisit at the end of the day and just say, look, these are some of the key things. What did you think? How did you find this? And as you said, by just highlighting a couple of small examples, it answers the why. So why have I been invited to this session? What's the purpose of us sitting here in front of my computer for 1 hour? And once they understand that, they see a lot more value out of the product.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you recommend like an ideal size group for this one?
That one's actually better with larger numbers. So, I mean, you can do it with as small as 10, but definitely up to 60, 70, 80 people. That's actually quite fun because it's a real race style situation, with the facilitators creating that, master chef style vibe of, 10 minutes to go, 5 minutes to go. How are you going? So bigger numbers works really, really well. And when they come back in the main room, no one quite knows who's won or who's done well. So it's quite a fun scenario there at the end when people are staggered, if that makes sense.
Oh, that's really cool. And are there any other outcomes that people can expect out of this, the infinite loop?
Yeah, the other big one is just problem solving. And I think all of us can really relate to that at the moment. 8 weeks ago, if everyone was told, right, you need to create a work from home space, and you can see the creativity the world has come up with these amazing work from home spaces. In this scenario, there's a lot of problem solving that needs to be done. And the key part being, generally, one person can't do it. You need to reach out to get the solution. And again, it just reminds us that we don't have to have all the answers. When you're in the workplace and there's someone over there, you just simply ask them a question. When you're at home, you forget that you can still do that. You just got to pick up the phone or jump on Zoom, and away you go.
Yeah, and I think it's even harder to do that sometimes when you're at home and you really only have your space to interact with, and the people around you are the people you see every day. It can be really difficult to kind of switch mindsets and go, actually, the same rules apply. We just need to think about them a little bit differently.
That's a great way of putting it. The rules are still there. Your colleagues still want to support each other. Your manager is still trying to help you progress. Your organization still wants to kick goals. We just got to be, as you said, a bit clever or be a bit innovative about how we go about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so the next one we wanted to cover is the DISC workshop. Now we all know, well, most of us would know what DISC is, but how does this translate into your program?
Yeah, definitely. So, if we're working through the scales, you've got your Win It in a Minute. That's really that, purely fun. You've got your infinite loop, which is still fun, but a bit more of a learning piece. This sits down in more like a workshop learning style program. So before the event, just like we would do if we were doing a live workshop, you would fill in your DISC questionnaire, which allows us to put together your individual DISC profile. And then from there, there'll be a little bit of pre-work, a couple of videos that you'll watch, so you don't come into the activity blind or the workshop blind. And then from there, this one's a slightly longer one, so around 2 hour mark. And you come in, and the first part is just understanding the basics of DISC. So what it is about, how it works, why, again, answer the question why are we sitting here? And generally it's to, learn more about themselves, understand themselves better, and then secondary, be able to apply that knowledge to working with others. So that's what the first hour is. And then the second hour is about their individual report and then some practical examples. And when we say practical, we're focusing now on the virtual world. Realistically, it's okay. You're in high I. What might you be struggling with at the moment, and how does that apply in the virtual world? And thinking about others in your team who might be an S or a C, how can you connect with them better? How can you get the best possible outcome by just compromising with your style a little bit, or working with them in terms of their space? Throughout the activity, it's not all just, us speaking and everyone else listening. We've still got plenty of engagement. There's breakout rooms, we've got discussion pieces, we've got energizers, icebreakers throughout. So we really tried to keep that fun and practical element in as much as possible. Once again, working with the restrictions of social isolation. But aside from that, it's a real learning piece. So people should walk out of there at the end really clear on their individual style, and also clear on others around them, their styles, and how best to work together in this virtual world.
Actually, as you were talking about it, I started to think back to the time that our business did the DISC profiling, and I sort of had to be having a bit of a chuckle, because it's like this light bulb moment that goes off, and you're going, oh wow, like there are other people that think like me, and then the reason why someone else acts in a different way is because they're a completely different profile of person. And I felt it really brought us all together, and people became so understanding of each other. You can see how in this environment, even if someone's done DISC profiling before, it would be really, really beneficial.
Yeah, definitely. Like, if we think about this, you've got your high I's who crave collaboration, working with people, lots of communication. And if you take a high I who lives on their own and they're now stuck in their apartment with very little connection, that's a real struggle for them. So someone on the other end of the spectrum might be like, wow, why is Peter emailing me and texting me 42 times a day? Well, that's because Peter's really craving that social environment that he's not getting. On the flip side, you've got someone else who might be a C and quite enjoy their own space. And you wonder, why you're getting short, sharp answers back from them. And that's just because they're working through their emotions. They're doing things their way. So it allows you to, I guess, gain a little bit of empathy around different needs, different behaviors, and why people act the way they do. But on the flip side, start to work towards solutions of, okay, well, if I sit here and they sit here, generally we come together here, and we have to be wary that we might clash here. And so that's where we've seen a real benefit. And this has been really popular, definitely for people, because they've realized that for a lot of us, our natural behaviors kind of get amplified a little bit when we're in this intense world we're in at the moment. And so understanding each other better is really, really important and hugely valuable to organizations.
I was just thinking, when you're talking about this particular program, could managers actually discreetly tell you beforehand some people that you might be having specific issues with, and try and tailor some of the messaging to help them understand things in a different way? Is that kind of tailoring that can happen?
Absolutely. And not just individuals. It might be, look, we as an organization, this is where we thrive and this is where we're struggling a little bit. So we can tweak the workshop so that it angles in towards that direction. And it allows us to, when we start to debrief and ask questions towards the end of the program, that those questions are really organization specific rather than just open-ended. It's a bit more specific to that particular company or that particular problem that they might have. And this way we're providing a real clear, as you said, customized solution that's going to tick the box for them.
And again, what are the ideal team numbers for the DISC?
Yeah, definitely. This is one of those ones where we like to keep it smaller, because mainly for that engagement piece with their facilitator, we generally have 2 facilitators on no matter what, 1 lead and a support, but roughly up to 20. But if we get more than that, which is what we've got tomorrow with a group, where I think they've got 35, we've just split it into 2 groups. So group A, group B, both at the exact same time, just on 2, it's like they're in 2 different meeting rooms. That's the best way to think of it. And we've got facilitators running through the exact same format with each of them, so that when they all walk out of there, they've all had a very, very similar experience to each other, and that knowledge is still shared across the board.
Okay, that works really well. I suppose that can, using breakout spaces, you could probably, do that over and over. So when everyone comes together at the end of the day for their daily wrap up, they can, all have had that same experience and not feel left out.
Correct. And that's the other nice thing is, you mentioned at the start, you've got one of the big things that organizations are doing when they're doing it well is understanding that everyone's in a very different situation. You've got your parents who are trying to homeschool, and then you've got other people that might have to tend to their parents and look after them, or whatever they might be doing to make ends meet. And so providing, a couple of options for people, all of a sudden, there's a bit of empathy from the individual going, oh, wow, my business, my organization understands me. They're trying to work with me here. So their output will be better as a result.
Awesome. And cheeky question, what's your favourite? Is it like choosing between children or?
At the moment, I could probably tell you my favourite child. For me, I think, and I was pretty surprised when I sort of thought about this, but Win in a Minute at the moment for me is my favourite, purely for that take your mind off things. It's been a really interesting 6 to 8 weeks in Australia, but then longer for parts of the world. And I think just for that 1 hour where you completely disengage with all the negative news and you just focus on having a laugh, having some fun, and just reconnecting with colleagues in a fun space. That probably for me at the moment makes it my favourite. It's a lot of fun as a facilitator because you feed off the energy from the group there.
Yeah, awesome. I think I might give that one a go, actually. Definitely like to take my mind off things every now and then. But look, I think that, the chat today has been really amazing, and I know that there's a lot of different options. So what we'd love to do is connect people with you so they can go directly to you to talk about all the different options. I think, how many do you have in total that are pre-organised?
So at the moment, we've got 8. So 8 tried and tested that all work, all functional, and get obviously a variety of outcomes. I did see, just again through our global partners, there's 2 more that have been trialled, one in Hong Kong and the other one I believe was in Scotland overnight, which went really, really well. So we'll be able to add 2 more. So it looks like we've got that magic number of 10, which is nice. And all of them are just going to achieve different outcomes. So whatever people want to do, they can give us a call. We can at least walk them through some options and then we can go from there.
I guess maybe people could do one a week, maybe get different outcomes each week.
It works for us. But absolutely. And the other thing is, I suppose, remembering different organisations are going to be at different stages of their corona, lifespan, if you like. Some people might even be starting to make their way back into an office space, in a few weeks, whereas others are going to face a much more extended time away. So really recognising where your business is at and fitting a program to suit that particular timeline and then reassessing in a month or so from there.
Sounds great. So if anyone has any questions today, we're going to send you through all the contact details for Kingsley. We're more than happy to direct you in the way to contact with him and his team. But thank you so much for joining us today, Kingsley, and look forward to hopefully doing one of your programs soon.
Awesome, Libby. Thank you so much for having me, and for you guys, well done on all the good stuff you're doing. It's brilliant. Really, really well received.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Kingsley. And thank you so much for everyone that has joined us today. We hope that this webinar will help you be more successful in the world's biggest work from home experiment. See you next week. All right, bye.